My name is Winton Goodrich. I'm the Superintendent of Schools in the Franklin Northwest Supervisory Union. And before we get into the focus of our show, I'll give a little context for what Franklin Northwest is. We have 5 schools. It's Franklin, Highgate, Missisquoi Valley Union, Sheldon, and Swanton. That is comprised of roughly 2,000 students and in the vicinity of 500 plus employees. And so a supervisory union just provides support for those 5 schools. This program will focus on workforce development and the integration between what the needs of employers are in the community and the region and what the development skills are and what we're doing in school for students who will either go directly into the workforce after high school or after college or following some additional postgraduate training. With me today, on my left, Kathy Lavoie, Workforce Investment Extraordinaire. She runs the Workforce Investment Board and just a primary guru in the region. Richard Barwin works with us in the Ag program at MVU and does outreach. He's the Work-Based Learning Coordinator. And Mary Hartman is what Kathy is on the outside, Mary is on the inside. And she helps develop the skills so that students can go out in the field and do what Richard sets them up to do, and that is to make those connections and to arrive at internships and maybe even apprenticeships at a level that will be value added to the companies, to the organizations. What we're going to start with today is with Kathy. And Kathy, give us some idea of what it is that you do and maybe how long you've been doing it for. If it takes us back to last century, well, then that's okay.
Thank you, Win.
Take it away.
Thank you. As Win said, I'm the director of Franklin Grand Isle Workforce Investment Board, and it means a host of things in different regions. But here for Franklin County, it primarily means that I work with both the business world and the education world to develop training programs possibly for the business needs or for the young adult needs because there's a huge interest and maybe we're not delivering it. I work very closely with both technical centers, Northwest Tech Center and Cold Hollow Career Center, and I work very closely with all of the schools in the region. And I must say MVU was the first school that I started working very closely with, and as Mary will tell you, we have an incredible careers program at MVU that started about 10 years ago, which is about the time I really started getting involved with this side of the business. So the initiative of integrating workforce needs, both employment needs as well as educational needs into our school system has been around forever. But I do think that it's only been the last decade that there's been a serious focus with it. And Franklin County was out in front of that all those years ago. And now with Act 77, I think that this region is perfectly aligned for the work that needs to be done around giving kids the opportunity to do some true career exploration, to create their own pathways towards what they need to be successful, whatever that is in the work world and in higher education world, as well as to do that exploration, to get out into our businesses, to associate and have into the classroom businesses, which Mary does very well, is making those connections with businesses, having them come in and speak to the young adults, talking about what it takes to be an accountant or to be a CNC machinist. I'm in the classroom as well, especially at MVU the most, talking about what those opportunities are. Who are the businesses in Franklin County and beyond? What are the training programs that are available for a young adult or an adult, like the technical apprenticeship programs in electrical or plumbing and pipe fitting, or the welding academy with all of its certifications. So as a workforce investment board, my steering committee, which Win is a part of, Richard is a part of, Mary attends as she can. We're out on tour every other month, and we're making sure that our educators, our Department of Labor, our technical centers are in the businesses as well, understanding their needs, understanding what transferable skills are needed, and then understanding what very specific technical skills are needed for a specific job. And now a lot of our time is spent talking about how we create a hub and a spoke environment so that we can be delivering work-based learning in a way that is efficient, and it is in a way that isn't putting so much pressure onto the businesses because they have multiple schools, multiple people knocking on their door to give kids opportunities. And I believe business absolutely wants to do that. Our businesses in Franklin County are very supportive, but we owe them we have the responsibility to make sure that we do it in a good way. So that's part of the discussion that we're now having as a region as well.
Let me just build on a bit before I go to Mary. And just this morning, we had a Workforce Investment Board meeting. There was a lot of conversation about proficiency-based graduation requirements, which all schools by law in the state next few years have to have students graduating with that. It's quite a paradigm shift between the traditional grading that parents and grandparents often know as A through F, and it's based on forced standards and rubrics and just a lot of different kind of assessment than what has ever been with us before. There are personal learning plans that build on students' passion. So speaking of passion, Mary, how is it that you connect students, and how do you kind of ferret out what their passions are and help them get connected with becoming contributing members of society?
So I've been at Missisquoi teaching the business department for 36 years. In the past, we've always tried to connect students in our elective business classes with careers. About 2007-08, there became a grant available through the Department of Labor, and we wrote the grant, we submitted it, and we were approved for a good sum of money, over $17,000, to start the Career Exploration Program. In 2008, it became a graduation requirement because we really felt that all kids needed to have a time in their schedule to think about what are they interested in, what's their personality type, what are their values. And it made their academics become much more clear.
Yes.
They were able to choose classes that were really focused on a goal. And so we've been running this class for about 10 years. It'll be 10 years, I believe, next year. And it designs their personalized learning plan so that school makes sense to them. We are able to use many assessment tools. We are able to have them research different careers by having a lot of community members in their classroom talking about what they do, talking about salaries, benefits, work environment, duties, and then they're able to actually think about what they want to do post-secondary school. We talk about traditional college, apprenticeships and internships, going right to work. So they're able to do that. And then we do a whole section on job search. They have a resume. They have references that they pick out. They learn to do certain applications, W-4s, I-9s. They leave with a portfolio in hand, but they also have an electronic portfolio, their personalized learning plan. And they work very closely with their guidance counselor from there. We also have, in addition to that, we've created a career center where we send, this year we've sent upwards of 90 students. We've served 90 students, job shadows, informational interviews, job interviews. They can come to us for resume updates or to just spend some time searching for colleges. And we have just established a career closet so that they can get some clothes for free if they want to come in and they want to interview or they want to go to the job fair. So we have a lot of services available to kids. So we've come a long way in 10 years. It's fun.
A little akin to the prom dresses that Highgate Library provides. So
I don't have any of those.
Well, I mean, no sense in competing, but it sounds like
attire.
the same business.
Yeah.
So dressing for success is important.
Yes,
And I
absolutely.
think we tell them that.
Yeah.
So let us transfer, Richard, to what it is you do when you actually place people out in the world of work. Talk a little bit about the breadth and opportunity. And Richard, just so that folks know, is new to this position, but has hit the road running, and a very important part of making the connection with students going out after they learn the theory and learn what kind of salary and wages come with this to actually what they do in the world of work.
So when I'm the work-based learning coordinator, as you said, and I think to really understand it, I'm going to step back a little bit and go back to the roots of work-based learning, which kind of lie in career and technical education. As long as I've known career and technical education, which is 6 years, I'm 6 years into teaching, there's always been a component of that called cooperative work experience, where students who became competent in professional, skilled jobs were able, excuse me, in their senior year to go out and actually get a job placement in a local industry that represented that particular skill. Some of them were paid, some of them were unpaid internships, and that has been historically an excellent program. There was never really an equivalent program for kids that weren't in a technical program or that were in a college preparatory program. And so Act 77 kind of addressed that. It opened up work-based learning, or flexible pathways really, to all kids. And the state identifies flexible pathways. There's 4 of them. Dual enrollment, with where they get a college credit and a high school credit for a single college course. Early college, where they get a college course. Career and technical education. And the last one, which is kind of my bailiwick, is work-based learning. And the state recognizes, and I think it's fairly obvious, that a student that is engaged in learning, excuse me, in an act or in a profession or in a skill that they really have an interest in is going to be a much more engaged student. And so my job is to take kids on the full spectrum of their learning journey and try to get them into a work environment where they can learn about a profession. At the beginning level, it's a job shadow, and actually even before that, we might just take them on a field trip. Field trips, job shadows, short-term internships, longer internships, paid placements, and I think kind of the highest level of work placement that we do is a state-approved apprenticeship. And so we try to get kids, based on their personalized learning plan, what their skills, their strengths, their aspirations are. We try to use the workplace as much as possible to inform their goals, to inform their educational choices, and to inform their employment choices. And what I'd like to say about it is that I come from a traditional classroom setting, and this is different in that every single plan, and Mary understands this because she does it with job placements, is a custom-made plan for each student. No 2 plans are the same. You don't work-based learning is not a classroom. It's a service that we provide for individual students, custom-made for the needs of the students. We match them up with an employer, and that process has to be done for every student that comes through the program.
Kathy.
And, you know, to Richard's point, that intensive one-on-one requirement that comes along with work-based learning is both important but very time-consuming and very different. Over the last 10 years, I also run Franklin County Internships and Placements. So in the last 10 years, I have placed over 500 young adults into either a higher education program, which could be the apprenticeship program or possibly a college, but a lot of them directly into the workforce, or dual pathways where they're going to a CCV or Johnson Knights or doing something as well as work. And every single one of those pathways, every one of those experiences is very unique to that individual and the needs that they have. You know, the conversation when I talk to the kids in Mary's classroom it seems so rudimentary when you say who you are and what you're about, what you're good at and what you're not so good at, what you have to accept, what is the reality? What do you need to shore up in order to get to where you'd like to be? And it seems so minor, and yet it sets the stage. It's the basis of work-based learning, is them understanding who they are and where they want to go. At a state level, when I report my grant numbers to my grants on how many kids I've worked with or placed, they'd like you to give you a check mark when the kid has had a success. By being placed into a job or into an employer or into a program. The fact of the matter is you never work with any kid without there being a success. If we place a young adult into a workplace and they find out that that is not what they'd like to do, it's that they don't have either the desire or the aptitude or whatever it might be, that's a success as well. We find out in life equally by what we don't want to do is equally as important as what we do want to do. So the opportunity that the MVU students have now by having a work-based learning coordinator that is specific to MVU is huge. And it's great that the WIP can work in partnership with the school coordinators now to vet those young adults, to get them into the business world, to introduce them to take them on tours. And again, MVU has been in front of that curve for years.
Kathy, do you have any worries that as more and more students want to go into the workplace that it's going to inundate the limited number of businesses that we have?
We do, and that's my primary concern for the business side of it. And so we've had a lot of discussion here. In fact, on my way here, I hung up with the work-based learning coordinator kind of overseeing a lot of the state initiatives and talked about the hub and spoke concept where as a region we should be considering how we bring together a vetting process so that when we can reach out to a local company, a Ben & Jerry's who does do tours, and say, can we get 3 tours a year out of you, and we will coordinate on this side who's going, when it is, and that type of thing. I've done that over the years. In the last 10 years, I think I've done it well, but with more and more kids, rightfully so, thankfully so, wanting to go out and have that experience, and more individual high schools having their direct work-based learning coordinator, that becomes even more important, and the chances of us knocking too many times is there. So that, as a region, is something we're working on right now.
Yeah. Case in point, and I'm going to ask Mary and Richard to respond to this with sharing what kind of the top interest job areas are. I think about the role of a med tech and concentration in phlebotomy, which is extracting blood from people. If you go into that thinking that's what you'd like to do, and your first experience is you pass out when you see blood being drawn, then probably that's not a direction to pursue. And so it's exactly what you're saying, what you do want to do, what you don't want to do. So for our teachers internal to the school, what are the areas of greatest interest for students? And let's start with Mary.
I would
here.
say healthcare.
Healthcare.
I would definitely say healthcare.
Okay.
We've worked in the past, since I began the program, with CVAHEC, Champlain Valley Area Health Education Center. They've been very supportive and very kind. A lot of our students have applied for their programs, Shadow Day, Day in the Life, MedQuest, College Quest, and we will not have them supporting the program as they're closing their doors at the end of the summer into the fall. So that presents a challenge to us, and I want to thank them very much. But we have a lot of kids interested in healthcare because we do, promote it. It's a huge need in Vermont. It's a huge need nationally.
Sure.
I would say manufacturing, and I would say IT.
Okay.
Maybe even mental health services. We have a lot of students interested in social work, psychology. So these are folks that have been very generous too in coming into our classroom, either by themselves or in panels. So it's interesting.
Those are the hot jobs.
Those
Richard,
are the
what would
hot
you say
jobs.
as you place people out in the field? Where do they want to go to kind of try their new skills out?
I think I concur with Kathy 100%. I'm sorry, Mary, 100% that healthcare is the emerging field, and there's a couple of reasons. the kids that go through Mary's class become very aware of how to evaluate a profession or a job or a career. So they're asking some really good questions. How do I get into it? What does it pay? What are the benefits? What are the career progressions? What are the working conditions? How will this support my the balance in my life? And healthcare is unique in that broad category of healthcare. You can access it at many different levels. You can go in with a high school diploma, get a certificate for phlebotomy, and really build a career in a hospital. Or you can go to school, go to medical school, do a residency, an internship, and enter as a surgeon or a physician. And there's everything in between, so it attracts a lot of interest. And the kids are able to evaluate that. I do have a lot of kids coming out of the ag program that are interested in diesel mechanics, auto mechanics, and in mechanics in general. And they come out with a good set of skills. They're highly employable, and they're ready to go, and they're motivated, and they're ready to go to work. And I can usually find a place for most of them. And I think the syrup industry, the maple industry, draws a lot of kids. There's lots of work to be done. There's lots of entrepreneurial opportunities for kids, and I seem to see that coming out of the natural resources program a lot. Yeah, so I think those are the top three for me.
So the latter is kind of a sweet profession, huh?
Yes, it is.
That's good.
I would also add law enforcement and Homeland Security too, because those are, especially the Homeland Security, that's a big employer for our area, and they've been very good about coming in and speaking to the kids and, you know, working with the Explorers program and so forth. So there's a lot of opportunities for student support and education outside the school as well, with clubs and activities like the Explorers program.
I think the employers, I speak with them a lot. In fact, Richard and I took a group on a tour to a large manufacturer last week. And I had said to the plant supervisor when we met with him, I said, now be prepared. They're going to come out. It used to be when you go to an interview, you don't ask how much I'm going to make, right? Oh. That question's off the board. But I said, be prepared. We are now in the classroom. We are, and have been for years, teaching these young adults to ask things like, what about your 401k? What do I get for health benefits? Do you have a pension plan? And when I start at a certain hourly wage, in a year, where can I expect to be if I work hard and I give you what you want? And he's like, he didn't say much, went on the tour, did the tour, and then he says, now, do you have any questions for me?
They were well
The hands
trained.
go up, and the first questions are, what shifts do you have?
There
and
we
if I go on second shift, do I get a shift differential? But we, I think what businesses have to become used to is that we are teaching our young adults in our classroom to really take some serious consideration about what their career is and where they're going to work, and to do that cost-benefit analysis. And then the other thing that businesses are becoming aware of is that we talk so much about transferable skills. You know, what is that skill set that you need to learn across industry, which is wonderful. But what it also, we're seeing in the business world is, it used to be years ago you started working at a company, or you started first in an industry and you never left it, or you started at a company and you never left it. Now not only are they changing within the sector as we have been for years, they're jumping sectors with no thought even about it. They will move from a manufacturing world into the construction world and not think a thing about it, because they know what transferable skills are. They know that they still have the aptitude, or they still have some work experience or something in that other field. So with Vermont in short about 20,000 people on a regular basis to fill the jobs, the businesses are trying to get used to the fact that young adults don't think twice of moving not only to a new company, but completely out of the sector.
Well, let me just use that as a segue for a moment. There's a very good book written by Gary Marks called, he started with 10 trends, but he's now up to 21 trends, educating children for a profoundly different future. And one of those trends is that by the age 35 to 37, that employees, workers in the field will have 10 to 14 different jobs
Absolutely.
in
Yeah.
a lifetime,
Yeah.
as opposed to what Kathy was
Yeah.
referring to.
Yeah.
You start one place and you be there forever, and that's
Yeah.
that's a minority of how that all works. So other thoughts about that from either Mary or,
Well, I
or
was
Richard?
just-
We've got about 5 minutes here to wrap up.
Just thinking, when we have the habits of work at MVU, and that's what transferable skills are, and we actually, across the board, that's one of our grading pieces in every classroom now, which I'm very glad to see, because it's not something that I'm just doing isolated alone in my classroom. So
It's in every
interesting.
classroom,
The
right.
state has really, come up with a set of skills that they think these are important for anybody, and we know that. And as far as, changing careers, that's day one we talk about that.
Oh yeah,
Yep, it's interesting how things have changed, right?
for sure. And Richard, any thoughts about that?
I think that work-based learning really, personalized learning plans, proficiency-based learning, and being able to let kids take a significant ownership over their own educational and employment success is really a brilliant idea, because you get so much buy-in with the kids. They own the process. It's something they're doing, not something that's being done to them. Secondly, I think that the school can't do it alone.
Right.
These community partnerships are critical. I'm going to steal something that Kathy says often, is that Act 77 is an education law, it's not a business law, and we would be pretty stuck in the mud if we didn't have Kathy and these other community partners to really steer us to where the need is, and to where the where those businesses that are interested in supporting us are. So it really is a community effort. Education is stepping outside of the school and really becoming a community effort than just a school effort.
Let me finish up, Kathy, with a question to all of you, but I'll ask Kathy to embrace it first, and then we have a few minutes to respond. I'm reading a lot about that we don't have some of the skilled workers we need for the high-level jobs in Vermont. Do you have any experience in that? Any opinion about either is that true, and if it is, what we're doing to begin to correct that?
Well, actually, there is a new group that's formed. I'm part of a team called the Vermont Training Pipeline Management, and it is an issue by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and Vermont is the only statewide team. There's 5 of us on the team. We have economic development, workforce development, a chamber, and Vermont Business Roundtable, Lisa Ventris, who is unbelievable. And that is what that's about. It's looking at exactly what the need are for jobs, how many in a year, in 5 years, and what exactly is needed for those jobs. And then on the other side of the equation, I leave for DC on Sunday for the other side of the equation, which is the supply side. Where are those workers coming from? How many are we short? What are the credentials that are needed for each of those jobs that are identified? And what do we need to build, by the way, to make sure that the education system is there to support the need? We chose as a statewide team to do 2 pilot projects. The one is in construction, and that's quite a distance along. We're really starting to do a survey for exact needs. And then the second one is healthcare. So we all know across the board, doesn't matter what region we're in, healthcare has huge needs for new people. So as a state, we're out in front working on this as a state. Of course, our state of Vermont is as big as some counties in other places. So it's county initiatives in Texas, possibly. But the state has recognized it, and I believe it's at all levels.
Okay.
It is absolutely at all levels.
Well, I think we're ready to wrap up. So when you're in D.C., Kathy, would you just make an appointment to check in with Secretary Betsy DeVos and let her know that these are really important things, and help her to kind of understand what the needs, not just in Vermont are, but across the nation, about connecting school to work, workforce development, and those kinds of things. So as we wrap up today, a special thanks to Kathy Lavoie, to Richard Barwin, to Mary Hartman, and to the viewers for tuning in.